We still gotta go up to there.
All right, I messed up big time. I already filmed this whole video in the backcountry with all this gear, and the night before I was shooting some Milky Way photos. I changed the lens to manual focus for those photos, and the next day I forgot to change it back to autofocus, and so my whole video was just a little bit out of focus. So now I'm back at home, trip's over, and I'm gonna go through this again, kind of show you all the gear that I bring with me on a backpacking trip to shoot videos for Amanda's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, and some photos. Let's start with the video kit. So I have my camera with one lens in this sort of, it's called a digital holster. This is Digital Holster 20 V2 from Think Tank. I've had this thing forever, beat it up, and it's great for backpacking. Sometimes I'll even clip these to my straps, and I can have my camera right there in front of me. So this is how I have my camera rigged out for most trips that we go on. A lot of times I'll hike just gripping this, or if I don't need to film anything for a while, I can just drop this whole thing in the top of my bag if there's room. But we have the Sony a7 IV with the Sony 24-105 f4 lens. On the front of this lens, I have a 1/8 mist filter, and then I also have a variable ND filter that I think this also has a little bit of mist, so I'm stacking a little bit, and that just kind of helps soften photos and highlights and things like that. I pretty much keep a mist filter on all of my lenses all the time. But 24-105 is a great range, especially on this a7 IV. With this camera, you're shooting oversampled 4K when you're in full frame, but you can also crop the camera, and it has a digital zoom that's still shooting 4K without enlarging the image. So you get a nice sharp image no matter how you're shooting that, and that really helps extend the range of the 105 all the way out to, I think it's over 200mm focal range. So if you really need to get tight end shots of maybe wildlife or someone hiking way in the distance, that's possible with this setup. I do think this year I might switch over to the 24-70 2.8 lens. I just think the low light would help a lot when we're shooting sunrise, sunset, things like that. For audio, we have the Deity V-Mic D4. This is a shotgun mic, so the sound it picks up is directional. It'll reject sounds a little bit that are off to the side and pick up mostly what's in front of the camera. So that's great for simple talking head stuff. We don't really need stereo audio. A lot of times I'll just hold this and Amanda will talk into the camera. We just really want the audio that's coming from the front of the camera. So we have this top handle mounted on top. This thing is a lifesaver when you're hiking and you're out of breath and you need to pause and get a quick clip, but you don't want it to be all shaky because you're breathing. You can kind of use gravity to help you and just let the camera hang from that top handle. And you can get pretty stable shots. Sometimes I'll put my other hand down here. And handheld, I can shoot pretty steady like that. Sometimes we'll bring maybe a fast prime lens or a wider lens. We have the 20 f1.8. We have the 24 f1.4. That's what I'm shooting this on another a7 IV, Amanda's camera. I like shooting my talking head parts just holding this little mic. Gives my hands something to do. So this is the Rode Wireless Pro, and that's what's connected to this camera, and that's where all the audio from this video is coming from. So if I'm planning like a big talking head portion, or I think this is the setup I want, I'll throw those in my bag as well. And these mics come in this cool little case. It has an internal battery, so when you put the mics away in this case, it starts charging them, which is nice. I don't really have to worry about running out of power on a trip. And if I really need to, I can charge this with USB-C during the trip if I'm shooting a lot of audio, but that's not gonna happen. Also for video, we have this DJI Osmo Pocket 3. This is a super cool little camera. Has a built-in gimbal. Starts up when you flip the screen, and super smooth footage. You can shoot this walking. You can triple tap this button and it'll point back at you and track your face. This is the DJI Osmo 3 handheld. I'm walking uphill and we're at over 9,000 feet, so I'm a little out of breath, but this little mic that comes with the kit syncs up to the camera, and you can tell that the footage is pretty stable for handheld. I'm just holding it at an arm's length as I hike. This is a great little kit. Depending on what kind of videos you're shooting, this might be all you need. Audio sounds good on this. It's a little windy, so I'm using the little foamy on top. And then, whew, yeah, I catch my breath. Even without this, the camera has some built-in microphones that actually sound pretty good until you run into wind. And the wind, you really get that rough, staticky sound, so that's why I'm using this. Triple press this joystick, camera flips around, and this is the view. Camping by this lake. So that's been a cool addition to our kit. We love that little thing. It also comes with a little tripod of its own, so you can plop it down and it'll track your face and you can talk right into it. Also in here, we got the creator kit. It also comes with a little mic, so you can do these same sort of talking heads and it'll sync right up with the camera and be linked up with your video file. So that's a great option. You could probably shoot entire vlog style videos or really anything with this camera. Quality's not quite as good as the Sony. You can't really do as much color grading or push the footage as far. And obviously you can't change lenses or anything like that. But for simple vlog style stuff, I mean, I wouldn't hesitate to shoot an entire video just on this little Osmo. Amanda has shot plenty on these and I'm sure I will in the future. To help carry cameras, I have a variety of Peak Design straps. If I don't want to just hold this on the whole hike, which sometimes gets pretty tiring, I can throw this on there. It's a nice fat strap, so it doesn't cut into my shoulder too much, but on long hikes, it still starts to feel a little heavy, so I like to carry it low or plop it in my bag. That's about it for video gear. I also carry a separate photo camera. So at the beginning of this year, I got the Fujifilm X100 VI, and pretty quickly this became one of my all-time favorite cameras. It's super small, super light, and I really love the photos that come out of this thing. I shoot RAW and JPEG, but I really mostly use the JPEGs. I've built out some film simulations I really love, and I just shoot way more having this on me. The Sony takes amazing photos, but switching from video mode to photo mode is actually, it's kind of a pain and it's slow, and I really just don't do it on a trip as much as I should. And so I've found that I really haven't been taking a lot of photos over the past couple years as we've gotten more into video, but this camera has changed all of that for me. I'm taking tons of photos, really all the time. I carry this with me everywhere, but on a backpacking trip, it's perfect. After I get all loaded up with my backpack, I'll typically throw this over my head and shoulders, crossbody, and it just stays there the whole time. It's so light, I don't really notice it, doesn't cut into my shoulder. So that's been great. Along with the base camera, which has a built-in 35mm equivalent lens, I carry this little kit. This is a Peak Design extra small camera cube. I love this size for all the Fuji stuff. And in here I have the Fuji wide teleconverter. This converts it to, I believe, a 19mm lens, but it's a 28mm equivalent on full frame. That's a great focal length for slightly wider stuff, or if you're hanging out with groups of people and you're kind of close and want to get a photo. With the 35, you kind of have to take a couple steps away from the group, but the 28's perfect. The photos feel like you're still in that environment, kind of involved with the group or the people or the setting that you're in, so really like that one. This trip was the first time that I had this wide lens, and it stayed on most of the trip. And then this other stuff is really for portrait work. A couple years back, I did a whole project shooting portraits of backpackers in the backcountry. At the time, my pack was probably 70 pounds on most trips. I carried a big battery bank with a flash head, the Profoto Acute 600, which is a pretty big, heavy kit. I carried my Sony and some bigger prime lenses. That was a really fun project, and I've wanted to kind of rekindle that, but without all that gear. So I have the Fuji teleconverter lens. This converts it to a 50mm full frame equivalent. 50mm is a great focal length for the kind of portrait work I like to shoot. Not super tight, not just headshots, shows a little bit of the environment, and especially when you're backpacking, you can get some of the scenery. So I like that setup. And for a flash, I have the Profoto A2, which is incredibly powerful for its size. Not as much power as that old kit that I shot with, but I was using a big 5-foot, 6-foot Octabank on that kit. Beautiful light, but it was heavy. So this thing, much smaller, much lighter. I don't mind packing that around. I have a quarter CTO gel that lives on the front of that flash just to warm up the light a little bit. And then in this Fuji kit, I have a couple extra batteries, a little tripod plate for the Fuji, and then this is the radio trigger to set off my flash. And so that stays in here. So that's pretty much it for the photo kit. 2 full separate kits. I don't always bring all of this stuff on every trip. If we're going somewhere very remote where I don't think we're gonna run into people, I'll probably leave behind the portrait stuff, the 50, the flash, and this softbox, save a little bit of weight. Video stuff, depending on the videos we're shooting, if I knew that we could get away with just the DJI, that is a much smaller, lighter package. I'll always bring the Fuji, probably always bring the DJI, and then if we want good quality footage, good audio, we are really planning a video and not just winging it, then we'll bring the Sony setup.
What you eating?
Oatmeal. Out of my coffee mug. Now on to some of the accessory stuff that kind of helps keep everything charged and working well together. This is the Profoto Click softbox. Opens up, clicks into place, and then this A2 mounts on the back, and I'm ready to shoot portraits just like that. Super quick, easy, much lighter and less setup time than the old kit that I was shooting with. See this is the elk sweater that Amanda knit for me, but it's getting a little too warm. In this little bag, I have a little air blower. You need to get one of these in your camera bag if you don't have one. I've had this thing since the start of my career. This one's got to be almost 20 years old now. Still works great. Helps to blow dust off your lenses or your sensor if you change lenses and get some dust on there. So keep one of those with you. And then I also have a smaller bag in here, and this is just full of batteries, a couple of lens wipes. I've got a backup AAA battery for the mic that's on the Sony. Got a little bit of gaffer tape wrapped up, another lens cloth. That's about it. I told Amanda to hike down to this little set of rocks. I'm just gonna get this wide shot of the whole mountains and her. And then we also carry some extra power stuff. So this is just a battery bank, 2 USB-A ports. This thing will recharge my phone and Sony batteries, keep pretty much everything charged on a 3-day trip, no problem. If I'm going for a longer trip or I know I'm gonna be using a ton of battery power, maybe I wanna do time lapses or I wanna do night photos or just lots of video. This is the SmallRig 99 V-mount battery. This thing's pretty awesome. It has a USB-A and a USB-C up top. This will keep things charged for longer than this. It's heavier, but this is a cool little battery pack. So sometimes I'll bring that with me. Next up, we have some support options so you're not always hand-holding. This is the Benro Cyan Bird TCB-C, the rest of the name's scratched off, but it's carbon fiber, it's pretty light. It has this dual ball mount / video fluid head on top. This thing's surprisingly stable for how small and light it is. It works great with our Sony cameras, the Fuji. Sometimes it's nice to have a tripod if one of us is doing a long talking head bit. You don't want to stand there hand-holding. You kind of get shakier and shakier over time. So that's a good option. We like that tripod. We sometimes also have just a Gorilla Pod. This is an easy option if you want to set it on a rock or on a tree or something like that. Well, maybe not a tree, the ground. But it just doesn't get very high, so if you're planning to sit up higher or stand up and you don't want a low ground angle looking up at you, this might not be enough, but it's better than nothing. So the last thing that's part of this media kit isn't really camera gear, but I always have a notebook with me. This is the notebook I use to outline all my YouTube videos, brainstorm ideas. I have a journal in here, and when I'm sitting outside in the woods or in the backcountry or by a lake or somewhere, it's nice to just sit down and write. I always think a little more clearly and creatively, and I get a lot of ideas when I'm outdoors, so I always have that with me. So I think that pretty much covers all of my kit. Lately, I've been backpacking with this Hyperlight backpack. Once you roll this top down, it's completely weatherproof, so this has been outside overnight in heavy rainstorms with all this gear and never have to worry about water, so that's nice. Might switch packs this year. This one's getting pretty old and it's a little uncomfortable on longer hikes or when I have a really heavy pack. So I might do something like an Osprey pack, they're just known for being super comfortable. All right guys, that's about it for my whole backpacking kit. Like I said, I don't really always bring all of this stuff. Sometimes I do. On this latest trip, I brought it all so I could film this video and it was out of focus, but we all make mistakes sometimes. So if this helped, if you have any other questions, please leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.